We already have companies looking to build roll-ups and L2s directly on top of Walrus and try and tie multiple ZK layers directly onto Sui. So it's very applicable. I think you could take the entire Solana history, store it on Walrus now, not have to worry about central entity. You could take the whole Ethereum history, store it on Walrus. You could take a roll-up and roll it directly onto Walrus. It's going to empower the entire Web3 industry beyond just Sui as a whole.
Protocol Podcast. I'm Brad Keoun here with my co-host Margaux Nijkerk. Sam Kessler is off this week. We're excited to dive into today's show with the latest news and developments in technology behind crypto and blockchains. First, please do not forget to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, The Protocol, on CoinDesk.com. And let's dive right into it. Today, our guest, Adeniyi Abiodun, he is the co-founder and chief product officer of Mysten Labs, which is behind the main developer behind the Sui blockchain, which is definitely one of the names that we keep hearing more about. And I met Adeniyi at Consensus a couple of weeks ago. We had a really good conversation. And welcome to the show, Adeniyi.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be on.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things I found super interesting about that conversation we had a couple of weeks ago at Consensus on the sidelines was some of your comments about what it was like to work in Facebook in the early teens. And let's get to that. But I also was looking at your LinkedIn, and you actually had some engineering jobs at JP Morgan and HSBC earlier in your career in the early 2010s. I'm curious, what was that like working at the big banks, and any lessons from that experience?
Yeah, I've had the privilege of working on trading systems and algos for hedge funds and investment banks for a large part of my career. And that was a time when I found out about Bitcoin. And during that time in JP Morgan, I actually realized how convoluted the whole financial system is. Just to do a single trade, how many hands it touches, and how many layers or stacks that information needs to flow through. And that coordination problem actually resulted in a lot of waste, a lot of cost. And Bitcoin really, really got me excited because I felt, hey, for the first time, we can have a single ledger that can help tie things together. And that's what got me red-pilled into the crypto space to a large extent.
I think we were just talking a couple of weeks ago about just how I covered Citigroup's efforts to innovate, and also around that same time frame, and it's just impossible in that bureaucratic, regulated environment. So then you went through a series of jobs. You were at blockchain at Oracle and VMware, and then in August 2019, you landed Facebook Meta. Tell us, what was your specific role there, and what was that like working on that team?
The job at Meta was probably one of my most fun career jobs I ever got to do, beyond working at Mysten and leading our product efforts here. At Meta, I got to work on a project called Libra. I was leading a lot of the work we're doing as a product lead on the R&D side. So everything related to innovation, all the bleeding edge technology, and making it very applicable to end consumers. That's what I work on. So we're a mad team of multiple PhDs working on some amazing tech, whether it's consensus, cryptography, programming languages. That's where I got to meet my co-founders, Sam, Evan, George, and Costas. And I had the idea of building Mysten Labs. So Libra was a goal by Facebook to build a blockchain that effectively makes the easiest sending email as sending money as easy as sending email. And of course, everybody knows the project didn't get to launch, but I believe the core team behind the inventor of Move was Sam Blackshear, and the inventor of the Libra blockchain, George, Costas, Evan. We all got together and decided to take our skills and build something that was way more ambitious than what Facebook actually tried to achieve. Facebook was trying to build a layer that makes sending money as easy as email. We're at Mysten are trying to build technologies and protocols to make the internet more decentralized, because we think solving that coordination layer has a multi-trillion-dollar market opportunity.
I guess we shouldn't go too far down the Facebook rabbit hole, but the high profile project was DM, the stable coin, but they were also building a blockchain
That's correct. So we had looked at multiple blockchains at the time. One idea was, should we just launch a coin on an existing blockchain? That didn't work because Facebook Scale was not amenable to anything anyone in crypto had built. Everything is very low bandwidth, can't handle a lot of users, and they all preach high scale, but they don't have scale. And also safety was a big concern. Most programming languages or platforms had a lot of hacks. And if we were going to go up to regulators and preach the mission of like solving financial services for the world, we had to have something with a lot of weight in terms of security and privacy. So building our own chain that could handle Facebook Scale was the goal. Although we went halfway towards that, and I feel at Sui, we've managed to fully realize that. The goal was to have a blockchain that everybody can use and it's easy to effectively onboard billions of users that Facebook already had. And Facebook has over 3 billion users across its family of apps, and you can't throw that on ETH, Solana, or any other platform. So our goal was to build that in-house to solve that problem.
I wanted to also ask, because, one of the other big famous projects that came out of this Facebook Libra DM team is Aptos. And Sui and Aptos are sort of always pitted against each other because you guys were all part of the same team at Facebook, and both of you guys use this Move language. I wonder if you can sort of describe to us like how like a user would go about picking a Sui or an Aptos. What are sort of the differences? Because like it's sort of interesting to see this team where you were originally collaborators and it was a group effort, and all of a sudden now you're competitors, right? Sort of your group to compete against each other. So how do you sort of what are the big differentiators?
I can go towards that. A bit of background. George Deniz is our chief scientist. His company we actually acquired at Facebook to come and build Libra. So he was the brains behind all the algo that we were doing to build a large-scale system at Facebook for Libra. Mm-hmm. Sam, our CTO, was the inventor of Move programming language, and Evan effectively ran the whole research and development org. Costas ran all the cryptography for everything we built on Libra, including what we're doing on WhatsApp and Messenger and everything else. So the large brains behind what happened at Libra and Facebook to build that infrastructure is at Mysten. When we left Facebook, we made a decision not to use the work we'd done at Facebook. So Sui is nothing like Libra. We had other colleagues who left and decided to use that as a stack. We chose not to do that because in our minds, we had built it to get to market really quickly. It was not going to be as scalable as where we wanted to go for Facebook scale or global scale. So if you look at the stacks between what we've built at Sui or any other move chain, such as Aptos, they're entirely different. For example, Sui is an object-based system. It's not an account-based system. So everything you do in Sui is an object. So if you're a traditional programming language developer, you understand objects and you can onboard with Sui very quickly. Mm-hmm. We just had a hackathon recently of over 2,000 devs. They picked up Move in days. Our object-based Move in days. Separately from that, Sui, unlike other blockchains, has no maximum throughput. We think the idea of having a max throughput is actually a red flag for lack of scale. Nobody asked Google how many searches can you handle per second. Nobody asked Google Cloud how many applications can you run in concurrent fashion. You just built infrastructure to scale horizontally. So the same people at Google who build search, who build Spanner, who build infra at Facebook are the same people building that kind of stuff at Mysten. So our DNA is being able to build highly scalable systems at scale. Mm-hmm. And cryptography and innovation, if you think about what we've invented with ZK login, the ability to use your email address to effectively privately sign transactions without Google or anybody knowing what your online engagement is, it's an innovation that nobody else has ever been able to do. So our teams have really, really built differently. We don't have our blockchain doesn't have a max throughput. It scales infinitely. It basically has the ability to process transactions in parallel. You can do thousands of trades per second without any restriction. We actually have benchmarked with lowest hardware configuration Sui at 297,000 transactions per second. And if you add 8 times the hardware, you get 8 times the throughput. So we don't have the same restrictions as other blockchains, and our innovations speak to that as well. So if you want to compare Sui and Aptos or other chains, you look at the team and the brains behind the team, and you look at the efforts. I think Sui right now is the fastest growing non-EVM chain. We've been on the market for less time than other chains, and we're in the top 2 non-EVM. So it speaks more to our aspirations as a team.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And, you mentioned that there were, I forget the time frame you were talking about, but you had developers were able to pick up Move very quickly. And I wonder, so I cover the Ethereum protocol, and Solidity is at the heart of Ethereum. And so maybe you can get to a little bit why create a Move programming language when I think a lot of people, or a lot of people in the industry sort of lean on Solidity as the way, because a lot of programs are built on Ethereum and are sort of,
Definitely a good question.
like put over to other ecosystems. So run me through a little bit, like high level, the differences between like a Move and a Solidity, and why a new programming language.
Absolutely. If we want to talk about when we say all, if you look at how big really is the dev community around Web3, there are at most 20,000 developers in Web3 as a whole. That's if you count Sui, Aptos, Solidity, Solana, you name it, 20,000 active devs. If you compare that with the number of JavaScript developers, that's 9 million. So we're not even early. It's
Right.
Separately, if you're going to build a blockchain or you're going to build a programming language that you want to onboard the next 9 million developers who are already building in JavaScript, C++, or other languages, you want to build it in a way where they can understand and build really, really quickly. So the semantics around Solidity and the underlying need to know the faults of the underlying framework is a barrier to adoption. And we see that because we see constant hacks that developers are actually really good in the ETH community, by the way, but it's hard for them to write safe code. So our thought process was we want to build a financial language that allows anyone to model assets as quickly as possible and not have to worry about the safety aspect. So which is why Sui Move has been very, very widely adopted, and we think it's going to continually grow. While we're at Facebook, we're actually looking at ways to use Move to rebuild accounting systems in the company, for example. It's just a great language. If you speak to devs who built in the Solana space, for example, Ruta, who built Solend at Solana and is building Suilend in Sui, his point was Sui's dev experience is 10x that of Solana's. So the focus on dev experience is very important, because if you're going to bring in Web 2 devs who want to build in the space, give them something they can get up to speed with very, very quickly. And I think the Solidity language is a very hard language for people to grok. And that's why I think adoption has been slow, relatively, if you think about that with respect to Web 2. There are more developers in Facebook than there are in Web 3 as a whole. So
that's really interesting, because I guess, like, are you, is your sort of pitch then that Sui is the blockchain for developers to build on who are not necessarily Web3 native, right? Is that sort of how you view your gateway? Because I think, like, a lot of people, when you mentioned your rabbit hole story and you thought about yes, it was, I don't know, maybe you were coding on Bitcoin, but you started with Bitcoin, right? And then I'm sure your next thing that you, or maybe I'm not sure, but I'm positive that Ethereum was the next thing you heard about, right? So part of that story is sort of you start somewhere, and Ethereum is like the main building blockchain, right? So I guess, I'm not entirely sure what the question is here, but it sounds like your pitch is that, like, Sui is for building for a Web 2, like a non-Web 3 native, but how do you sort of make them hear about Sui when maybe their first dip into blockchain and crypto is a Bitcoin or is an Ethereum?
So I think we've done a really good job in encouraging ETH devs and Solana devs to build on Sui, even though that was our first target. And quite frankly, it wasn't our first target. Our target is to win the 9 million devs in JavaScript, because we think Move will be the JavaScript for assets in Web 3, in Web 2. That's our goal, right? We want Move to be everywhere. So the more chains adopting Move, the better it is for the world, and less faults, hopefully, and less hacks. If you think about, like, the adoption, we have a lot of ETH builders building on Sui who are now very successful. Solana builders build on Sui are very successful. TVL on Sui grew literally as a result of the efforts of these developers, because they've tried Solidity and they've tried building on Sui, and they've realized how fun it is not to have to chew glass, or how fun it is not to have to worry about re-entrancy bugs that can cause all sorts of losses, right? So we've tailored a programming language for everybody. But at the same time, we do recognize there's an incumbent ETH ecosystem, and we've done a great job in winning them, but we still need to do a better job in at least evangelizing Move as a language. We've only been live for a year, and in a year, we're already number 2, right? So we're not doing too badly, but we want to be a lot further ahead than we are now. It's just a matter of time. I think the function that we need is time for people to know more about it. But we're already seeing apps doing a lot more transactions per second than other chains on Sui. Quite frankly, you can onboard users on Sui very, very quickly. They don't need to know that blockchain is there. A lot of the apps in Sui allow you to log in with web-based wallets or social login. and it's all done privately without the concept of wallets. And I think that's really our goal. We want to win the mass market into this space rather than focusing on the same small market that Web2 seems to.
Adeniyi, just to step back, this is super interesting. I mean, I wrote down JavaScript for assets, and I mean, at a higher level, sometimes y'all are classified as a smart contracts blockchain, but maybe just, in Swee's end game, what is Swee doing? What is Swee? What in the traditional world is Swee replacing, or what are the vision for the use cases that will be happening on top of Swee?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very good question. Glad you asked. So our vision for the reason why we got into this business in the first place is not that we're trying to build a blockchain, right? If you think about just blockchains, right, what are they doing? They're trying to create net new assets, DeFi and things like that. That's interesting and that's novel. And I think that has a place and that would grow over time. Our goal for Swee is to be a global coordination layer for intelligent assets, right? And that will take multiple forms. We've built something highly scalable that allows billions of users to interact with it all of a sudden. Now the idea of interacting with assets or using assets across different applications is normalized within Swee. We've recently launched today something called Walrus, which is a decentralized storage. Walrus itself is more distributed than AWS, cheaper than AWS S3, more decentralized, and of course allows you to store petabytes and petabytes of data in a globally decentralized layer. Now, we think that is a great use case for blockchains, right? And that's all powered by Swee. Swee coordinates the movement of packets of data. It coordinates the buying and selling and trading of data as an asset in itself. But it's a coordination layer. And I think over time, you'll see more stacks built on top of Swee. We have smart contracts that let you coordinate finance with DeFi. We have a Walrus that essentially is using Swee as a way to allow you to store entire websites, video, 4K images, 4K video directly on a chain in a very cheap way that you don't need a centralized server to run. And over time, we're going to add more things. We actually have ideas on how you do that with bandwidth, a global bandwidth layer for the internet as a whole. So our mission at Mysten is to effectively build a web stack that is entirely decentralized, from when you publish a website to when you run an app to when you run APIs. We started that with Swee, which is a layer that's going to underpin everything. We have a storage layer. Over time, we're going to add other layers on top of that. And we think that's where the world needs to be. That opportunity itself is a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. And we're not just playing a blockchain game. So we've taken it a lot further than that. And to do that, you can't just use the tools that exist today. You need to really, really innovate. If you look at what we've released, everything has been highly vetted by the top scientific communities in the world. So we've hired some of the best experts in the world that can turn really, really high value or high quality research into something engineering can implement and make a product. We're not interested in writing papers and just publishing papers. We're interested in actually shipping stuff that consumers can use day in, day out. So that's what really makes us exciting. So the top level is Swee is a global coordination layer for intelligent assets. And it happens to do blockchains better than every other blockchain in the market as a result.
And this AWS, how did you describe it?
So we have a storage layer called Walrus.
Yeah.
Walrus effectively is the first global storage layer that is, it's proof of stake. It's a fully decentralized storage layer that gives you more replication than Amazon would give you if you're using S3 or GCP. It will give you more replication. And it would also split your data across hundreds, if not thousands of nodes. And you get the benefit of actually having very, very, very low cost storage as well. So you could choose as a DApp now, do I store it on Amazon or do I store it on a global decentralized layer that has very strong censorship resistance that you would have on other infrastructure. So we think that's going to eat the world of apps who want to build on a full piece of infrastructure that's fully decentralized. So now you have a DEX that's fully decentralized, unstoppable, or you have a website that's fully decentralized, unstoppable. The additional benefit is the code that the site is running is now verified. So you are no longer in a place where DNS can be, your domain name system can be stolen, and then you're dealing with a fraudulent app and funds lost. There's a lot of benefits out of that. In fact, also, how do you hack such a system? The only attacking vector is you steal keys. We know how to do key management much better than having someone pay someone to serve as at some company that can effectively hack your server, give access, or go underneath the BIOS and find a way to steal files, right? So we think this is a much safer way and actually a better way to give open systems a call. We'd love to have the likes of Wikipedia running off this infrastructure. You could run a WikiLeaks off this infrastructure. I think there are multitude of use cases that this could really appeal to. But I think it's making Web 3 more real to Web 2 people. And a blockchain is powering this entire thing.
And is this something you're really going to be pushing, or is this just kind of, ancillary to Swee's roadmap?
It's absolutely something we'll be pushing. We already have companies looking to build roll-ups and L2s directly on top of Walrus and try and tie multiple ZK layers directly onto Sui. So it's very applicable. I think you could take the entire Solana history, store it on Walrus now, not have to worry about central entity. You could take the whole Ethereum history, store it on Walrus. You could take a roll-up and roll it directly onto Walrus. It's going to empower the entire Web3 industry beyond just Sui as a whole. So that's the kind of scale that the work we're doing offers, right? It's amenable to Web 2 and Web 3. And we think traditional companies can do the same. It's an and. Beyond storing it in Amazon, you can store it in this global store that would never be deleted, right? So we think there's a lot of value to Web 2 and Web 3 companies with this infrastructure.
Right. So it's interesting that you mentioned ZK rollups and other scaling technologies. That sounds like that's coming to Sui. I wonder, if obviously zero knowledge has been a big trend in the Ethereum space, and we're seeing layer 2s pop up in Bitcoin. I wonder if there's any other trends that you personally or Mysten Labs is paying attention to in some of these other ecosystems. Like I'm thinking maybe restaking, like and lessons learned maybe, or faux pas, let's say, if you want to bring, if there are these certain technologies that you're looking to bring to the Sui ecosystem.
Certainly. I mean, there's a lot of financial reengineering or layering of complexities that we see in Web3, unfortunately, right? That is only here to stay for a while before the next cycle, and then we do something else. Those are good, but they're not really great for bringing on the billions of users, right? I think one thing Sui does really well is trading. Sui has this unique feature called programmable transaction blocks. That is a way where I can chain 1,024 transactions together atomically. So if I want to do a trade across 100 DEXs, I could do it in one go, and if any of them fail, it rolls back. That's not possible on any other chain today, and you could do that without smart contracts. So we think we already have Kessler, who's building a cross-chain trading engine directly on Sui for that benefit. So now you'd be able to do trades on Sui infrastructure across Solana, ETH, any other network with a single transaction with atomicity, which has never been possible. It's not even possible to do that in Web 2, let alone Web 3. So I think that's going to be huge. Separately from that, our big focus this year is really going to be bringing Web 3 to Web 2. And I think one of the things we announced was a Sui Play 0x1, which is the first dedicated games console that allows traditional Web 2 people to buy a device that plays both Web 2 and Web 3 games out the box. You get to benefit from the end of ownership, and as you play games, you get to receive rewards. And now you can get cross promotions between one game and another. You get that out of a really high value device. That's our goal. Like, we want to be everywhere where consumers are, and I think just simply keeping on playing financial economics is only going to keep the same people in the cycle. We want to bring net new people to Web3, and I think that's always been our core mission. That doesn't mean we don't believe in early adopters. We absolutely do. In fact, if you look at the Sui community, we have a lot of Sui maxis now as a result, and they're absolutely important to building community, and that's something we really, really cherish.
Mm-hmm. That's really, I think this aspect of bringing Web 3 to Web 2 is really interesting. I sort of have like a two-part question to this, so, feel free to take it wherever you want. What I'm wondering is what's still missing from bringing Web 3 to Web 2? Because it sounds like that's like the big goal here. But also, we were talking just briefly about these different technologies, and Sui is, focused on this trading aspect, and that a lot of the other stuff, in the blockchain wider ecosystems, there's just a lot of hot trends at the moment. It might not be sustainable. And I agree with you that there's a lot of, trends like this that are happening. I'm wondering if you sort of view then blockchain specifically as like a financial like in order for it to be sustainable and for it to be used by Web2 users, is blockchain only like a financial instrument, or, you know, some of these other technologies around restaking? I mean, I guess that is purely financial, but you know, but some of these bigger trends are keeping blockchain users and like it's becoming more insular, right? So people are looking for other ways to use blockchain in order to bring people on board into this, you know, and into this new growing technology. The future of blockchain, is it really just financial?
If you think about it, right, like if we want to rebuild the internet, when I go to a website today and I'm browsing, I don't think this website is amazing because it's on Amazon, or this website is amazing because it's hosted on Google. It's just a website. And I think the world where Web3 becomes really useful is when it blurs the lines between what's possible, rather than right now you have to be explicitly indoctrinated in an ecosystem. Like the fact that I'll be able to log into my Schwab in the future and transfer assets from my Schwab directly to something else, right? And do that without the manic pain of signing multiple documents that I do today. That's value in itself, right? We launched a product called Stashed. Stashed is a fully very safe web-based wallet that uses zero-knowledge proofs as a way to hide your identity between your identity provider, whether it's Google, Twitch, Facebook, or whatever, and signing on-chain transactions. Now, for the first time, anybody in the world has a Sui account on Sui without knowing they're using the chain. And then you add on top of that you have a human-readable name as a way to identify yourself, and the wallet address is completely hidden away. Now, I can send you a link that you can claim potentially in Cash App, you can claim in PayPal, you can claim in any other system. You're using Sui as an interoperable layer. This speaks of what we believe, that there's the fundamental problem to solve is coordination of assets, coordination of value, not this re-engineering of financial stacks over and over and over again, just to keep people looped within these complex financial systems, and only the rich end up benefiting. Once you can solve the coordination layer, the upside is trillions, like insane. Like it's a lot. I wish people could see that, right? Like we're playing a game of billions with like, you know, DeFi, right? Where coordination is multitude of trillions. Look at what's happened with OpenAI as a whole, right? Just simply being able to tap into building the infrastructure, all the shovels and things for the AI that AI is going to need in the future. I think of the world of building these layers, and all these layer ones should be focused around that. How do we make coordination across the internet better? And how do we do that in a way where developers can access very, very simply? So for consumers, it should be almost hard to tell the difference. There are apps coming to Sui ecosystem, for example. One of our apps called Wave Wallet has over 2 million users, and they've integrated directly seamlessly into DeFi. Users don't even know they're using a particular DeFi protocol. It's just trading on their behalf. It's engaging with the broader Sui ecosystem without having to advertise a DeFi feature. And I think that's where it's going to go. But for that to happen at a scale of 50 million, 100 million, 400 million users, you need to do that with the same kind of low latency that Web2 users care about. And I think that's where the infrastructure really matters.
Just to, you know, kind of pivot off of that, the comments about what Sui is for, and it's this, you know, global coordination layer for intelligent assets. And now we're talking about gaming. And yeah, obviously, you know, players have assets in gaming, but I was just talking with a builder here in Austin this last week, who was making the point that, you know, for a lot of gaming stuff, it doesn't really have to be decentralized, even because, like, you know, you want to know you own this asset, but like, okay, if there's a glitch, like, you just move on or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need this immutable record of your game necessarily all the time. And then here you're talking about AI and some of the AI applications. You know, there's all these like blockchain AI projects. But I mean, so how does Sui's like asset model fit with some of these other
very
kind of non-financial applications?
So if you think about it, in the traditional blockchain, when they say you own an asset, you actually don't own anything, right? If you look at an ERC token standard, right, what it really is, it's a hash table of a bunch of addresses that says you own this byte or this bit, right? And then the file or the asset is elsewhere. right? So it's very, very restrictive. It's not like these, like Ethereum was great for building, modeling of balances. It's not great to be more expressive than that. What Sui goes to do is it allows you to model objects. And the fact that you can model objects can own objects. You can build real complex ownership structures in the real world. You can model real world assets as a result. To go to your gaming example, I absolutely agree. If you think about the games that existed first, there are spreadsheets turned to games. It wasn't fun, right? It's great to know you're losing money, but then you're now losing money and losing a game at the same time. I would absolutely hate that experience. So the kind of game studios we're working with have a pedigree in launching, games that are fun. And the point of the blockchain is, one, it opens up the door where if they want to interoperate with another publisher, it's possible. Certainly, they want to also use it as a way to stop fraud. If you imagine, if I make a lot of progress in a game, what do? I sell my account. I could get robbed. It could be stolen from me. This is happening all the time. And then as a publisher, you get no residual value from that. So now you can build fully transparent marketplaces. You can actually even lock the ecosystem and say, only game players in my ecosystem can trade this asset. But you could set a fee that, one, users are no longer being scammed by the dark markets, but also ensure that you get residual revenue from the trading that could happen. Separately, the data you generate as a result has a lot of value. Now you can know who your high-value user is. You can maybe use that as a way to sub-market to another game ecosystem, or bring partners as a result to show the effect of their...
So is the game on the blockchain, or is the game just using the blockchain?
The game is using the blockchain. We have some games that are fully on-chain. In fact, when Sui did the most amount of transactions in December, it was an on-chain game of 8192, where you actually move blocks. The entire game state was on-chain. You can transfer it when you get stuck to your friend, and your friend can finish it. And whoever submits the game will share the results or the profits based on who submitted the most amount of moves. So these are new things that could be doable, that are now doable, that wasn't possible before. You cannot do that on any other blockchain where you have a fully on-chain game. You can transfer the game state from person to person and build an economy around that as well, which is very useful. So Sui lets you model assets like they're real world. I should be able to pass you a game. I should be able to pass you a coffee. I should be able to pass you a ticket. And you own that ticket. It's not a contract that effectively is owning the asset by proxy, and you build all sorts of crazy abstractions around that. In Sui, the asset is what you own, and it's very unique to Sui as a model.
We're kind of running short on time here. We've probably got time for maybe one or two more questions. But I was reading about your Mississetti, the new consensus engine. Is that right?
That's correct.
Is that a big deal?
Oh,
for you?
It's an absolute big deal. So when we launched mainnet last year, we showed that Sui is the lowest latency blockchain in the ecosystem. People like to tout latency numbers all the time, but what matters is what is your actual finality end to end. And Sui is already probably 4 or 5 times faster than other chains in terms of time to finality of 500 milliseconds. That matters if you're playing games, if you're doing trading, anything that requires a really fast response times. We've been able to take that further to allow all transactions to effectively be lower than a second. So effectively, a transaction on Sui completes faster than you can reload a website, which is mind-boggling. It's never been possible before. Any transaction you do on Sui now with the Mississetti upgrade, once it's live, allows every transaction you submit to be final. I'm not talking about optimistic, like end-to-end finality, stored in the blockchain, agreed by every party, is done before you can actually refresh a website, which means for the first time you have a chain that you can build real consumer applications on faster than Visa for a swipe of a card, faster than anything you've done before from an end-to-end perspective. It now makes blockchains really usable for anything related to finality for the first time. So it's also important to say that Mississetti is important because even when a system is under high load, latency is very low. Some blockchains will tell, oh, we've got low latency, and as soon as you go past 100 transactions, everything's out the door, right? It's everything gets backed up. We've seen that with multiple chains. With Mississetti, you can throw 100,000 transactions per second at it, and it'll still be low latency, still less than a second, which is very important. It's great to have the worst case and also the best case.
Last question. What's the timeline on that?
Mississetti, we plan to release that in the end of July.
Okay, so that's coming up pretty fast. And is that like a testnet or a
It's in testnet already now, and developers are already building on it. It's actually no code change developers have to make, but now they're seeing in testnet transactions are just even faster than they were before.
I see. Okay.
It rolled out in mainnet in July. this year.
Okay, interesting. We'll look for that. Thank you. We'll cover that heavily in our Protocol Village column. Little plug for Protocol Village. How'd you like that, Margaux?
We love a good Protocol Village submission.
Love it.
Okay. All right. Well, Adeniyi Abiodun, co-founder of Mysten Labs and Sweet Blockchain. What an interesting conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's an honor. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
That is it for us this week. Thank you for listening to the Protocol Podcast. Thanks to our producer, Michelle Musso. Thanks to our booker, Mel Montañez. If you have any questions about any stories or comments, please reach out to us at podcast@coindesk.com. Subject line, The Protocol. You can listen to us weekly on CoinDesk Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, please subscribe to our weekly newsletter, The Protocol. I said that, but I'll say it again and again and again and again. Please subscribe to our weekly newsletter, The Protocol, on CoinDesk.com. See you next week. Thank you.